When looking back at many of the live-action family films released in the 90s, certainly among the most celebrated is Babe. Based on the book The Sheep Pig by Dick King Smith, I've long found this to be a delightful film that does such a splendid job of bringing us into the world of this farm. But what is it about the story of a pig who becomes a sheepdog that has enchanted so many of any age since its release in 1995? I think one of the key reasons has to do with the titular pig himself, as he's such a sympathetic character. This is a movie that immediately shows what a cruel world this is for pigs, as his mother is taken away to become bacon and he's left alone. It's hard not to hope things turn out better for Babe, and when he winds up on Farmer Hoggett's farm, you see how he attempts to make himself part of these animal groups, no matter which species they are. Babe is incredibly likable, which can partly be credited to the script, the pig playing Babe in many of his scenes, and of course voice actress Christine Cavanaugh. She did a superb job of voicing the role and giving so much heart and warmth to that little pig. I like how a lot of the movie mostly involves hanging out on this farm and seeing what the various animals and the Hoggetts get up to. We really get a sense of each animal's function on the farm and the specific role they play, whether it's the dogs watching over the sheep or the duck who tries to be a rooster. Babe tries to form a friendship with all of them, even the main sheepdog Rex, who instantly takes a disliking to Babe. Part of what endears Babe to Farmer Hoggett and the other animals is his genuine politeness and interest in them. You especially see this with how Babe talks to the sheep, who are so used to being treated with disrespect by the dogs, and then here comes this pig who sees them as more than just animals meant to be pushed around. The movie even contrasts how Farmer Hoggett's grandchildren behave versus Babe's politeness. While they're bratty and whiny, Babe actually appreciates and shows interest in Hoggett and his work. It's one of the reasons why Hoggett takes such a liking to Babe. Speaking of Hoggett, James Cromwell gives such a wonderful performance as that farmer. We see how seriously he takes running the farm as well as his affection for many of the animals. When Cromwell read the script, he noticed that Hoggett did not have that many lines, especially in comparison to the animals. However, he tells us so much from just his facial expressions, and when he does speak, it leaves the intended impact. When Dick King Smith saw the movie, he had particular praise for Cromwell, saying he captured exactly how he envisioned Farmer Hoggett when he wrote the book. Providing some comic relief is Magda Szubanski as Mrs. Hoggett, providing a humorous contrast to her husband's quieter, more reserved personality. I already mentioned Christine Cavanaugh, but the other voices were also perfectly chosen. Hugo Weaving captures the needed ferociousness as Rex, Danny Mann is hilarious as Ferdinand the Duck as he flaps about and gets into mischief, and Roscoe Lee Brown brought such a warmth and the right delicate touch to the narrator. Probably the most surprising performance comes from Russi Taylor as Duchess, the Hoggett's conniving cat. Taylor is primarily known for voicing Minnie Mouse and other kind-hearted characters, but she's completely unrecognizable here as a cat who messes with and tells Babe what people actually do to pigs. The special effects utilized to make it believable that we're seeing talking animals are also remarkable. The film used animatronics courtesy of Jim Henson's Creature Shop, which managed to seamlessly blend with the scenes that had real animals. A lot of credit for that goes to Neil Scanlon, who is the lead supervisor for the animatronics at Henson and has continued to provide a lot of the creature effects on some of the recent Star Wars movies. About 50% of the shots of Babe we see in the movie is the animatronic, which was controlled by Mack Wilson, a longtime puppeteer at the Jim Henson Company. He was also heavily involved in puppeteering Audrey II in Little Shop of Horrors and Michelangelo in the first two live-action Ninja Turtles movies, among other accomplishments, and he found the perfect movements and facial expressions for that little pig. Meanwhile, the computer-generated mouths on the real animals were done by Rhythm and Hughes. This was a remarkable breakthrough at the time, and one of the earliest examples of this type of visual effect. Gone was the need to put peanut butter in the animals' mouths, as they could use computers to have the animals talk, and these effects still hold up to this day. Pretty much any movie or show that attempts this kind of effect owes a debt to what Babe pulled off. The movie would even win the Oscar for Best Visual Effects, and it was absolutely deserving. The film is such an incredible atmosphere, knowing when to be inviting and when to hide in the drama of a scene. Andrew Lesnie, who would later film the Lord of the Rings trilogy, did a lovely job with the cinematography, achieving some incredible shots of the farm life. There are times when the movie even looks like a John Ford production, with the sunsets and shots of the landscape. And then there's the music, which primarily uses a lot of classical music pieces and add to the magic of a given scene. Most prominent is the use of Camille Saint-Saëns' Organ Symphony, which has now become synonymous with Babe, as it perfectly captures that pig spirit. One of the most touching scenes is when Hoggett is trying to restore Babe's health, and he sings If I'd Words, a lyrical version of the Organ Symphony. It's such a standout moment that really shows how much Hoggett has grown to care about Babe since he first picked him up at the county fair. When people talk about Babe, George Miller tends to get a lot of the credit. It was his idea to adapt the book into a film, eventually producing and co-writing the screenplay. At the same time, he was busy developing and getting ready to direct the science fiction film Contact. So Chris Noonan was hired to direct, and I think it's Noonan's specific touch that helped make Babe so special. Despite the film being about talking animals, he was insistent that they be filmed like they were actual actors, as he did not want to talk down to the audience. He knew when to make the movie cute and when to show the dangers the animals are in, finding the right tonal balance. One of the best directed scenes in the movie is the shepherding competition. Noonan did a superb job of pacing that scene and showing the audience going from ridiculing Hoggett to being amazed at Babe managing to wrangle the sheep and listen to him. One of the best directorial decisions is when he stops the music entirely, when Babe does his thing, allowing us to concentrate on Babe and the reaction from the audience rather than having the music tell us how to feel. And then the movie ends with that unforgettable line, "That'll do, pig, that'll do." Cromwell also sells that look of approval on his face. The rest of the film is great, of course, but it especially lands in the climax, and it's all because of Chris Noonan's direction and his handling of the film's tone. So I understand Noonan's frustrations that George Miller seems to get the majority of the credit for Babe's success, and it's why he did not direct the sequel. In fact, the wildly different approach Miller brought to Babe Pig in the City highlights even more the specific touch Chris Noonan brought to the first film. Babe will get nominated for 7 Academy Awards, including Best Picture, which probably makes people who've never seen the film scratch their heads. This family film about a cute talking pig was nominated for Best Picture. But then, once they watch the movie, the reaction is normally, okay, now I get it. It's an incredibly charming crowd pleaser with a lot of heart and manages to create investment in these talking animals. Chris Noonan's decision to not film it like a typical family movie also added a certain pedigree to the production, and it managed to hit that sweet spot of appealing to everyone of every age. Babe has such a clear respect for not only the audience, but the characters at the center of the story. Not to mention a worthwhile message about listening and understanding and seeing talent in the most unexpected of places. I watched Babe a fair amount of times in my childhood, and it's a movie I occasionally come back to, as I remain impressed with both the touching story and the impressive filmmaking. See you next time.